The popularity for Encanto doesn't seem to be going anywhere, with the film's songs topping the charts, and fans still discussing the characters and themes of the movie. Encanto's cast features a wide array of characters ranging from charming to stern and everything in between. But does a character being comedic mean that they have nothing else to offer?
Who is Hernando?
I'm Hernando and I'm scared of nothing.
Today we're asking the question, which of these characters is the most brilliant, and who isn't the sharpest tool in the shed? I'm Kyle with Wicked Binge, and this is Encanto Characters Dumb to Brilliant. Taking the gold medal for dimmest character in the movie, we have Mariano. Mariano didn't receive a lot of screen time, but when he was present, he was far more concerned with being romantic rather than taking in what was actually happening around him. Mirabel's behavior had confused him, but Mariano was willing to simply roll with it until Dolores blurted out what was happening. At the end of the movie, Mariano was in his own little world, not sure what to do with all the love he had that he wanted to give to someone. It was as if he completely forgot that other women besides Isabella existed and that love was possible elsewhere. The next not-so-bright character is Camillo. Camillo wasn't a huge force in the film and was much more a comedic relief.
You are make your papa proud.
I don't sound like that.
However, we rank him as second to lowest on our list due to a few reasons. First, when Camillo was able to disguise himself as Dolores, it showed that he was used to masquerading as others in order to get his way. Second, when the casita was beginning to collapse, we see that he was able to use different forms to perform different physical feats. Next, we have Pepa. To her credit, she had a very strong gift that would have been difficult for anyone to control. We can't fault her for being stuck with rain clouds whenever she became stressed. What we do fault her for is how temperamental she tended to be, and how that temper blinded her. She had been the one to create the hurricane, yet she fully blamed Bruno for the event and held a grudge because of it. Her inability to recognize Mirabel's struggle led to her simply going right to anger, refusing to speak about Bruno, and straight up glaring at the poor girl when she found out about the vision. Following her sister is Julieta. Her husband was treated more of the comic relief in their relationship, but we had to place her lower on this list for her inability to support her daughter the same way he had. During her conversations with Mirabel, Julieta attempted to console her daughter, but had ultimately failed to really help. Her advice had been to be complacent and accept her place in the family, mentioning how when Bruno lost his way, he was no longer a part of them. We will concede that she did recognize how difficult a time Mirabel was having, but she had also taken far too long to actually stand up to Abuela Alma about her behavior towards Mirabel.
You've always been too hard on Mirabel.
While she was labeled as the most perfect member of the Madrigals, we had to round out this category with Isabella. Isabella gets some points for how she was able to harness her ability in such a short amount of time, considering she had no idea she was even able to create plants that weren't flowers. We also had to give her credit for being able to convincingly play the part of the perfect granddaughter. Isabella managed to fool her entire family into thinking she was content with her role in the family that Abuela Alma had given her. However, because Isabella was so concerned with being the granddaughter she was expected to be, she failed to be there for some of the family. Specifically, Isabella was clueless about Mirabel's struggle and the fact that Dolores was experiencing heartbreak. Our next category is the average folk. These characters are, as the name implies, pretty average in terms of intelligence. Not too smart, but not too dumb. We start this category with the strongest member of the Madrigals, Luisa. Traditionally in animation, there's the question of if a character is more brain or brawn. In Luisa's case, she has a fair amount of both. Certainly more strength, but she's no dummy. Being the first to be impacted by the power fading, she wasn't at all surprised when Mirabel began asking questions about the cracks.
But if something's wrong with the magic, start with Bruno's tower.
While Luisa didn't see the cracks herself, her own song, Surface Pressure, expressed that she clearly sensed something was horribly off with Casita. Though Luisa had initially been reluctant, she was able to steer Mirabel in the right direction concerning Bruno and the vision. Next up is the matriarch of the entire family, Abuela Alma. For years, Alma was not only the person solely responsible for raising her children and keeping her family safe, but she assisted in helping to lead families to safety. After the family settled in the Encanto, Alma was given the role as head of the village. Everyone respected her and came to her for advice, relying on the Madrigals for assistance using their gifts. While Abuela Alma made a lot of mistakes when it came to her family, there's no denying that she still overcame a lot and accomplished a great deal during her life. It wouldn't be easy for anyone to run a village and raise a family all on their own. The only reason we have to drop her into the average category is because Alma's reliance on the miracle made her unable to see Mirabel's value and led Bruno to hiding away. Alma was also clueless to Isabella's panic when it came to starting a life with Mariano, despite having a very obvious reaction to hearing Mariano's desire for 5 children.
He wants 5 babies.
Wonderful.
Alma was so concerned with maintaining the miracle and starting the next generation, she had been absolutely blind to the damage she had been causing. It took the miracle dying and Casita collapsing for her to realize her mistakes. Now we get to the college bound. These are the characters who are just a stone throw away from being the most intelligent. First up, we have Dolores. Like Luisa, Dolores had helped to get Mirabel on the right track. It was because of Dolores that Mirabel was able to confront Luisa concerning the cracks and what could be done about it. Dolores also made the comments that she was able to hear the rats in the walls acting unusual and had been aware of Bruno still residing in Casita. There are some that give Dolores grief for spilling the news of the vision to Camillo and starting the domino effect of the major confrontation between Mirabel and Abuela, but we argue that it was intentional for the small side effect. After all, Dolores had lived her whole life thinking there was absolutely nothing she could do to end up with Mariano. Dolores took the chance to have the proposal ruined, and then was able to sweep in at the end to get Mariano's attention. That's a 4D chess move, and we have to give her props for it. Our next ranking is a tied spot going to the dads of the family, Felix and Augustine. These two showed a lot more awareness than normally expected of comic relief. Augustine was initially played off as nothing more than a guy who was accident-prone. Felix began simply as the clueless but suave husband. As the movie progressed, however, these two were developed very nicely, especially considering how little screen time they had. Felix was often seen helping his wife through her more chaotic weather patterns. He even came to her defense when Abuela Alma complained about the rain Pepa was creating, and can be heard making the comment, "let her feel," which was what Bruno had attempted to do before their wedding. Augustine was able to reach out and relate to his daughter Mirabel when no one else did. Yes, the family knew that it was an awkward time for Mirabel to be preparing for Antonio's ceremony, but Augustine was the only one to express how he understood her problem. He tells her about how intimidating it was for both him and Felix to marry into a family full of remarkable people. Later on in the movie, when Augustine found out that Mirabel found the vision, Augustine came to his daughter's aid. When hiding it didn't work and the cracks grew, Augustine still defended his daughter's choice. Both of these men showed that they refused to be intimidated by Abuela Alma by standing up to her to protect their loved ones. It was also heavily implied that the two of them were well aware of what the vision likely held, as Felix made the statement that it revolved around Mirabel, encouraging her to find out. And when Augustine spotted the emerald in Mirabel's room later, he was quick to catch on as to what she had, and had been unsurprised to see the vision involved Mirabel when he got to look at it. Rounding out this category, we have our protagonist, Mirabel. The family had been determined to keep their secrets hidden, so Mirabel had been fighting an uphill battle throughout the entire movie. Even with everything working against her, she was able to achieve what she set out to do. However, she falls just short of the genius ranking. In her rush to be the hero and save Casita, Mirabel tended to make a mess. No, it wasn't her fault that no one was able to see the cracks and wrote her off as crazy, but she hadn't really helped her case by grilling Luisa during breakfast the next day, to the point that Abuela Alma had grown annoyed.
I will help Luisa. Stop.
Not only was Mirabel able to find the vision and find out what could heal Casita, but she was able to see the problems her family had that they kept swept under the rug. It also says a lot that Mirabel was able to look logically at why Abuela Alma acted the way she had for all those years. Mirabel had also been the only one to know right away where Antonio had hid himself away when the whole family had been looking for him to prepare for the ceremony. That not only speaks volumes about how close the two were, but shows how when Mirabel isn't too distracted by Casita collapsing, she can be far more perceptive than other people in her family. Finally, we have the geniuses, the smartest characters in the film. The bronze medal of smartest person in the movie goes to Pedro. Pedro didn't have any speaking role in the film, but we placed him high on the list for what we see him accomplish. For one, Pedro had been one of the people to lead the families away, helping to find a better place for them to reside where they wouldn't be constantly attacked. This showed that, like with Alma, people respected him and naturally sought out his guidance. Pedro had been a respected member of their community. There's no doubt that after his death, his influence and sacrifice had been one of the reasons the Madrigals would go on to be such an important family among the people. Though Pedro hadn't been able to grow old with his family, he had ensured their future. We also can't help but rank him high for whatever he managed to pull off to take out the enemy that had hunted them down. Pedro hadn't survived the encounter, but whatever he managed to do was effective and resulted in the miracle coming into existence. That's an impressive feat of magic ability that is nothing to brush under the rug. Taking the silver medal of brain power is Bruno. Like others in the family, Bruno's abilities are nothing short of impressive and manage to aid in many ways. Because of Bruno, Abuela Alma was able to secure plans for future generations and help maintain the family and the village before he had hidden away. But we didn't give Bruno the gold medal of brains because of how he used his powers. It wasn't Bruno's fault that he tended to be awkward and decided to inform the village of bad news rather than good. After all, it makes sense that he prioritized telling people what they needed to prepare for instead of spoiling good news before it reached them. What Bruno failed to take into account was that people aren't known to be logical in the face of misfortune, and so he hadn't really been sure how to handle people lashing out at him for things he couldn't help in the first place.
Bruno makes bad things happen. Oh, he's creepy and his vision killed my goldfish.
By the end of the film, Bruno was able to explain that he just hadn't been able to be clear when talking to Pepa, finally able to make amends for how his joke was taken the wrong way and resulted in Pepa creating a hurricane. We also had to drop Bruno down to second place because though he was able to show Mirabel the vision, his initial fear had led to a lot of misunderstandings about his absence. Still, his living in the walls did mean that he was able to spend much of his time patching up the cracks and helping to preserve Casita, which he felt was the only thing he was able to do for his family. Finally, our gold medal of brain power goes to the youngest member of the Madrigal family, Antonio. In a very short amount of time, Antonio went from being nervous about the possibility of not receiving a gift to becoming an absolute master of it. We see when Mirabel was attempting to hide the pieces of Bruno's vision that it was the animals Antonio had around that gathered all the pieces. Because of Antonio being able to understand the rats, he was able to figure out that Bruno was still living in Casita and caught on to Mirabel's plan.
The rats told me everything. Don't eat those.
There was something satisfying about seeing Antonio surprise Mirabel and Bruno, offering his own room as a space to do the vision. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell, and binge some of our other Encanto videos. But most importantly, stay wicked.